Wednesday, Valerie Hunt, RunRx, Ask Me Anything. And it's right before the holidays, so happy holidays. I'm really excited that this week I'm going to talk about two things. I got two questions. And the first question was, what is the real benefit of getting a gait analysis or having a running coach? You know, why should I take that extra step and work with a coach? Which is a great question. And then the second question was, of course, something we hear a lot here at RunRx. I've just started ramping up my mileage, and now I'm starting to feel a twinge in my shin. So I'm starting to get a shin splint as I go up on mileage. I have a race coming up. What do I do? What's the quick fix, right? And I wish I had a quick fix, but I do have something to talk about. So one of the things that happens when we get excited about running or start running is we really want to go running before we really know what running is. And so what does that mean? So a lot of us will talk our friends sign up for this race, it's going to be great. And there are so many great races, right? There's so many benefits, and a lot of us are getting out to race more now. So we're usually lured into running by either a race, we sign up with a friend, or just join a friend, or it looks fun, There's a lot of reasons to get into running. And for a lot of people, unfortunately, when they do start to get into running, it's hard, it hurts, it's not quite the experience they were hoping for. So for a lot of people, unfortunately, running becomes about the injury. So if I start to get a shin splint every time I go running, or my shin starts to hurt, then every time I go running, I'm going to be, oh, my shin's going to hurt. And then my whole run is, I hope my shin doesn't hurt, And then the only way I know I had a good run is if my shin didn't hurt. So it just becomes, your run becomes about, avoiding pain, which we want to, but it's still not about the running. And then when people, I say this a lot, but when people say, hey, if I say, hey, I went running, what are you usually going to ask me? How many miles I went? What's your bench? I'm just kidding. But, because what else are you going to ask somebody? Where did you go? Did you do some hills? Things like that. So I'm challenging you to ask yourself, what is running? So that if I have a pain in my run, I can go back to, maybe I was doing something I shouldn't have been doing while I was running, And that way you can kind of own your running. So then you're like, okay, how do I do that? Well, let's talk about, I'll give you the fix for what I would start doing for a shin splint, but I do want to say we do have a quiz on our website, runrxquiz.com. So if you're getting a shin splint, plantar fasciitis, IT band, all of these little injuries that keep us from enjoying our run, take the quiz, it'll ask you where you hurt, and then it gives you a skill, strength, and self-care tip, which is what I'm about to do for if you have some kind of shin splint. Hi! Yes, let's talk shin splints. Okay, by the way, I used to think that shin splints were a part of running. And I want to stress that because before I was a runner, I used to teach a lot of group fitness classes, which involve a lot of high-impact activity on the ground. And I used to get shin splints in the beginning when I first started teaching. And all the other instructors were like, oh yeah, I get them too. So we're like, okay. Like it should just be okay, right? And then the more you taught, the stronger you got, and then those shin splints kind of went away. So when I got into running, I immediately also got shin splints. And I was like, oh, it's normal. You ask another runner, hey, have you ever had shin splints? They're like, oh yeah. Or planters or whatever. So then let's start talking about the shin itself. What's the role of my shin in running, right? So then it goes back to what is running. So let me just answer what is running. Running is free falling. And it's cool to just say that out loud, but running itself is the body free falling. The action of running, the gait cycle of running, is what we call pose, fall, pulse. It's the pose, it's the running pose, or figure four, right? So, and I've been coaching pose method guys for over 20 years, but it doesn't change. It's this figure four here. From this pose, your body can use gravity to fall forward, and then your job is pull. So the running part, the movement, is the fall. That's when you travel. Your body is traveling through space, right? You have one foot on the ground. For about 1/10 of a second, you should have no feet on the ground. That is the only time the body is actually traveling, right? It's really cool to know that. So then you're like, okay, great. So then your job is to pull. So what does pulling even mean? It means that what happens is the body falls forward as you pull, right? So it's very fun to say it because it's the opposite of push. And pushing is what most of us done for our whole lives. Like most of us push when we walk. You definitely push when you jump. So there's nothing wrong with pushing except that for running, if I push, my leg goes this way. And I want to go this way. So first I just have to kind of have that conversation with myself of what is pulling, right? So then you're like, okay, why is this important? It's important because my hamstring pulls my foot. So what is my shin's job? See what I mean? So now it goes back to, okay, let's go back to, I have a shin splint. If I am falling forward and pulling my foot up from the ground using my hamstring, there should be no pain in my shin. My shin's not even part of the gait cycle. See what I mean? But when you're running, all 600 muscles, your whole skeletal system is active. So the shins do have a job. Their job is just not your job. Their job is, or the shin job is, as your foot comes down, gravity puts it down, it's got to hold, right? It's part of holding the rest of the body up. So it's all connected. So if my shin is hurting, it's because you are asking the shin to do work when it's not time. And anytime you overload any part of the body, it's stress on that part of the body. So if it's the shin, let's talk shin splints, you're doing this, okay? What you're doing, instead of just pulling the foot and then letting it go and letting the ankle relax and letting gravity just put that foot down, you are controlling the down. So you're like, I want to feel the ground is here. Now I feel it, and only then will I let that foot go. You're not really thinking that. It's just how you're running. So shin splints kind of tension. Now here's what's really cool. For a lot of people, if I say to them, what's the answer then? Well, doesn't it make sense to say the answer is to practice and develop your ability to pull your foot up using the hamstring to develop elasticity so that you use less active muscle contraction. And if I learn how to use elasticity, I strengthen the bones, the muscles, the joints, but I'm also teaching myself that I never do anything else in my run but pull my foot up. Up, 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 up. If I pull my foot up, allow my body to fall forward, my shin splints are going to go away because I will not then be asking my shins to, hey, I know you're already busy doing what you need to do, but could you also hold 3 times my body weight for no reason at all for 1,500 steps a mile? And I was a shin splint queen, I'm telling you. And everyone's like, oh, just ice them. I had Dixie cups of ice in my freezer all the time because I thought that that's how you ran. So your idea thought is I'm going to go forward. Going forward. But unfortunately, it just turns into jumping. And then you're jumping and your shins are like, I cannot take that impact. It's just too much, right? So the answer is, don't worry about what you're doing wrong. Instead, start practicing what to do correctly. So the shin splint's going to go away if you practice pulling. If you practice pulling to pose. Practice, of course, being in that running pose. And start to get some elasticity in. And then last but not least is that self-care aspect, right? So for me, for shins, you got to play around with that back foot. See how I'm opening here? So this is where I start people. To just start opening the ankle, right? You can move it back and forth, right? It's going to feel really nice to just let the ankle go this direction. We want to have floppy ankles in our run, so part of that is adding in ankle mobility, right? And then you can take that ankle mobility all the way. This is one of my favorites. I do these all the time, right? So my ankle is opening. Open, stretch, release, whatever you want to think it. It's just more about I'm letting those muscles relax, right? Muscles either contract or release. So the idea is let your muscles release. It's really what you're trying to do. But this is really helpful for those shin splints. I can take it a little further to here, right? If I can't be on both feet, I might just take it here. But I have a time, I have a time, right? The reality of stretching and rolling is very necessary, but first and foremost, let me make sure I'm doing the correct movement when I'm doing my activity so I don't hurt myself, like, right? So then it goes into the second part of today. Okay. See, you can always ask a question while I'm talking. I can see and I'll come talk to you. So, like I said, there's like, because if I went to someone and I said, hey, I've got shin splints, I guarantee you they're going to be like, oh, here's what I did. I did these toe taps, or here's the stretch I did, or we have so many solutions to try to help you feel no pain in that moment. You've got to say to yourself, I'm doing an incorrect movement, and I need to correct my movement pattern, right? And the more you do the movement correctly, especially one movement like running that's the same over and over and over and over again, the better I get at doing that cycle correctly, I'm just going to continue to get better. And that's how the body heals. Like the body heals with good movement. Because if I keep putting myself in the right pose, doing the right action, using the right patterns of movement, then when you run, it's so freeing. And by the way, the whole falling aspect, using gravity, in the beginning we really resist that because it just sounds so strange, I think. It doesn't really make a lot of sense. So I'm just going to pull. But guys, if you've gone through the Runner X reboot, which is great, always there for you on YouTube, and you start feeling like, okay, I'm pulling, just not going anywhere, just remember it's pose, fall, pull. So you're going to learn the action, and you also have to let gravity do most of the work. It's about giving away some of the work. Let me end with this. So how do I know I'm doing it right? Well, let me watch you. So one of the benefits of having a running coach is instead of waiting until something hurts, you can see it as a preventative. Most people come to us when they're already injured, and of course we're happy to take you. But imagine if when you went running, you knew you were running correctly, you knew you were avoiding injury. And what happens with running is most of us don't think about our running, unfortunately, until there's a pain. So then if I went to the doctor, my knee hurts, they would just simply try to give you exercises that would help you maybe strengthen the knee or the quad or the hammy or something around the joint, instead of saying, let's watch you run. Let's see your movement. And then once I can see your movement, I give you, it's like one-on-one training. I'm giving you specific training for you using the universal gait cycle, because all of us need to stand in the running pose. All of us need to learn how to perceive falling, and all of us need to learn how to pull. Everyone just learns a little bit differently. And the fun part is everyone's out there practicing the same thing, right? But their perception's different, or their ability to progress is different. Who cares? For me, it doesn't matter. For me, it's to help you progress at your ability so that you're running pain-free. Our membership, by the way, is 12 weeks. So you have 12 weeks of check-ins. 12 weeks of asking questions, getting feedback. Because for a lot of people, they feel it. Like for just a minute, they're like, oh, I got it. And then they got to mile 2, and hey, God, I got to mile 2, and this weird twinge came up. And I'm like, hey, send your check-in. You send your check-in, and I help you see, oh, you know why? Because instead of pulling up, you're kicking back. And every time you kick back, your right foot kicks forward. You're not feeling that. I can help you see it, and I can help you to correct it. And when you get to a point where that just becomes how you run, then we can take you to the next level of training for an event or whatever it is. But honestly, guys, it really benefits you to have someone focus on you. Not your pain, which I can help you with also, but you understand if you're always like, I have people say to me all the time, I have a really tight hip. I've been doing hips and hips and hips, hip stretching, hips clams, hips and this. And I'm like, right, but when you run, you're standing like this. So then you're just putting direct pressure on the hip the whole time. Or when you run, you're holding your shoulders back and your foot's going forward. So it's just to help you be aware of your own running, and then I help you, of course, correct your movement. So it is a lot of fun. I hope whoever had the shin splints that reached out, Feels better. Now here's the thing, for those of you that are experiencing some of this stuff, right? Whether it's shin splints, by the way, whether it's plantar fasciitis, for most people, guys, I promise you, if you would just start to think, okay, I've got to keep my knees bent, got to hold my upper body lifted, and just pull. Just the thought of when you run, up, 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 up. I tell you, just that will get you off the ground. And the more you start thinking about running as, ooh, falling, pulling my foot up from the ground, even those thoughts, you'll feel lighter. You'll start even when you're walking to hold your body up, right? Because either way, even if I'm not running, why would I not want to hold alignment, right? Even when I'm sitting. That's also what your coach does, is reminds you of all those things you need to do, right? Your posture work, your seated work, your strength work. Accountability is huge. All right, guys, like I said, have a Merry Christmas if you celebrate. If you have questions, you can post them here. You can always send us an email. If you're interested at all in our membership, just go to our website or take the quiz and get yourself a tip and get started on your runs. All right, guys, great to see you. Thanks so much.